Hello, Professor.
Hello, Josephine. That was so fast. That's awesome. Hello. And I think that was Joseph. That was Josephine, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Awesome. It's voice, it's video, it's happening. It's so many points. And it's Claudia also showing video and saying hello, hello. And now to the chat. So it's good to see you guys. Happy Monday, sort of. Also, I'm just going to say hello, Mohammed, Alexis, Eric, Stephanie and Jada for showing pictures. Thank you. Now to and of course, also hello, Logan, Katie, and Emily, who are totally here. I know. I'm going to the chat now. I'm doing that thing. So good afternoon, Emily. Good afternoon, Mohammed. Good afternoon, Alexis. Good afternoon, Katie. Good afternoon, Jada. Good afternoon, Logan. Good afternoon, Stephanie. Good afternoon, Eric. Okay, I think that is that everybody. Okay. And okay. So we're gonna start where I think we are really. I'm seeing all your work. I really feel like we are all catching up with one another, which is great, whatever that means. I'm assuming okay. So, and I totally know and appreciate that there's still definitely a number of questions we still need to go over from um Big Old Duck. I totally know that. And I totally intend to do that, but it's not going to happen today because today we're going to backtrack. Well, we're going to backtrack and deal with homework 3, train of thought, which we've never talked about yet. It's deliberately assigned for you to think about very early, but sometimes we don't actually talk about it until a little bit later, like now. So it's still understood that we have things to go over in homework 6, totally understood, and we will, but we're going to backtrack to homework 3 right now. Also, 2 other, and if I didn't say good afternoon, Eric, good afternoon, I think I did though. If and you see the homeworks are getting longer and thicker, and that's what happens. But I think we're all doing it. I think everybody who's trying to keep up is and is doing well with them. Hopefully you saw 2 things in the Google Classroom that I'm not going to belabor right now, but just to draw your attention, 2 things in the Google Classroom. One, the next homework has been posted. It's even new material. It's even perhaps thicker than the last one, but that new one is due a week from this Wednesday. Just be aware of that. Like it's not due in 2 days, and it's not due next Monday because we don't have school next Monday. It's due a week from this Wednesday. So hopefully that will be enough time. Good afternoon. Wait, okay. I'm looking at the chat. Okay, I'll respond. Well, first of all, good afternoon to everybody in the chat. Good afternoon, Josephine. Good afternoon, Shai. Good afternoon, Maria. Good afternoon, Jenna. Good afternoon, Claudia. Well, I said, but anyway, yes. Okay, and yes, we are definitely not abandoning or forgetting homework 6 at all, but we're going to pause on it today to go back to homework 3. That's what we're going to do. But yes, I want you to be aware that the next homework is due a week from this Wednesday. So again, wherever you are, just keep catching up, just keep revising and uploading anything old to get more points or points that you haven't gotten yet or blah, 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 blah. But the other thing I hope you saw in Google Classroom, again, I'm not going to belabor it now, but you should notice, and you should email me or text me if you have any questions, that we're going to trade like this Wednesday, not like obviously you're here today and that's good. So there wasn't confusion, but in 2 days, you won't come to class in a synchronized way. You will just wait till the other section's video is posted like late Wednesday night or Thursday morning, and you'll watch the other class video, and you have till Friday night at midnight to do so. And then you'll just I sort of neglected to do this the other time accidentally, but what I usually do is you're going to submit a document which basically just says one thing you did understand or got out of it that you didn't know before that you got out of the video, and one thing that you're still a little bit fuzzy on. You don't have to go crazy with the document, but it's just a one-in-one kind of thing to to help motivate you to really pay attention to the video and hold yourself accountable for that fact. So anyway, but please, if there's any, so the bottom line is don't come to class this Wednesday. That's what I'm trying to say. And you get points for just responding to that message and confirming that you understand. You'll get like 7 points just the minute you say, and many of you already have, and I appreciate it. The minute you just say yes to that message, you get 7 points for doing that. So we know we're clear. And then you get 9 more points once you watch the video from that class. Okay. So, all right. So I'm going to go on, but just, can you just, wait. Oh, and anybody who, yeah. Look. No, I see some things in the direct chat. It's all with the regular homeworks. It's whatever you're up to. That's what you work on, and you work on it as well as you can. And you hand in a draft, and I give you comments, and then, or I don't. It goes back and forth. You don't have to. If something's not in yet, you still have time to turn it in. Is basically what I'm saying. It's not personal to you or to me. Don't just it's just easier for you if you stay on top of things. Okay, wait. Oh, Josephine. Sorry, Josephine. Question.
Sorry if you've already said this, but we are going over homework 6 today a little bit more.
Oh no.
Or mainly just the train of thought one.
Yeah, I mean, right. No, I'm glad you're clarifying. I mean, if I happen to get through everything of homework 3, train of thought, then the absolute next priority is to go back to homework 6. And so if there's time, I will.
Okay.
But
Will
I'm not.
we go over it at some point, the homework
No,
6?
absolutely. No, that's the next class, without a doubt. Like, we're not going to spend more than one class. Okay, so let me back up for a second. I have to lay down some concepts that come out of homework 3. I will lay those concepts down today. We're going to use them. I promise. We use them for the rest of our 2 semesters in physics, but I won't spend more than one class explicitly laying them out. So at worst, the very next class, we're shifting back to homework 6, I promise. And you're certainly, for whatever it's worth to anybody who's you're certainly not going to be tested on it or anything until we've gone over homework 6. I promise that. But yeah, the next class at worst, we'll be back to homework 6. Maybe if there's time at the end of today, we'll start that. But I can't. But does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. I don't mind like when we went over it. I just wanted to make sure we were going to that.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But thank you for it. No, that's awesome. And I hope it's clear to everybody that Josephine just got 800 bajillion points, or should submit for 800 bajillion points for using her voice, for asking a question, for acknowledging that she got the answer to the question, like for real. In fact, she can even submit technically to the go back portal because she was asking me to go back to something that wasn't clear from 5 minutes ago. So that's awesome. Yes. Last I'm going to say to everybody, though, just to be sure, because I don't want to, can you just, if it's clear to you that you are not showing up to Zoom class on Wednesday, rather you're going to see the video like Thursday or Friday in response to that video. If that's clear to you, could you just raise your electronic hand that we're not showing up to class? Thank you, Shai. You're not showing up to class Wednesday. I just want to be clear about that. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Emily. Okay. So hopefully, and tell your friends if they're in the class or whatever. Okay. And that's not true. Okay, great. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Emily. But again, even if you just did that, you're still going to get set. If you didn't write yes, yeah, like look at the Google Classroom posting. You get 7 points the minute you just say yes, just because I don't like to have people get on subways and stuff when they don't have to. It's okay, it's clear. All right, thank you. And then when you watch the video, that'll be posted on Wednesday night or Thursday morning. You have till Friday night to watch the video. Then you'll answer a couple of questions about it, and you'll get 9 more points. Okay, I think that's clear. So now, I hope that's clear. Okay, and thank you, Muhammad. And Muhammad just got points. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, again, like apropos of what Josephine just clarified, we're going to shift back to something you all thought about deeply on one night, but it was a few weeks ago. We're going to shift back to homework 3, train of thought. So let me just change my screen here for a second. In fact, yeah, I'm actually going to like really change. I'm going to do a different screen share just so because I know it's been a while. Ideally, you would take out your train of thought assignment right now and be looking at it on your own. Oh, hello. Wait, here comes Alan. Okay. Why is there, it's not letting me do it. Oh no. Wait, I have a new Macintosh has gotten a little bit. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me just. Oh God. All right. So, okay. Bear with me for a second. There's a screen sharing like privacy issue. Cause yeah, like God forbid I should share physics with myself. That would really violate my own sense of privacy. Um, okay. Hold on. And if I can't do this, I won't. But um the thing I want to say, train of if you all the more reason, if you have your old train of thought, homework 3 assignment, please like be looking at it while we do this. And if you have your answers, a copy of your input, please have that out. I do want to make clear on this assignment, as long as you did it and you did it thoroughly, you got all the points. But and you might have gotten a lot of check marks. That does not mean that I actually ultimately agree with everything you said in it. I mean, this is why we have to discuss it now. So there may be things in your assignment that I didn't comment on directly, but that still we have to comment on now. Now, it's just not letting me. Hold on one second. If I can't do it, I won't do it. But and here's Nancy. Oh, what? Hold on. I know Nancy's in the waiting room. Hold on. Are you kidding? Well, it's not. All right. I may not be able to do this. I know Nancy's here. Well, okay. I'm gonna try one more time. All I'm trying to do is share the actual. Oh, no, maybe. Okay. So here's the original problem, the original scenario. And on this, let me also tell you, to be honest, if we were in a physical room together, especially if it were, say, a board meeting, which would be the ideal for this, we would really have a 75-minute, like, full on discussion about this. That's really its original intent. Now, I don't feel like that works so satisfyingly or efficiently on Zoom anymore. So I'm going to be a little talky about this, a little bit more than I would prefer. But because this is conceptual, right? It's not numerical. It is conceptual, but the concept is hugely important. So I do want to say, even though I'm going to start talking, more than ever, feel free to put things in the chat or stop me or say things like, this is a conceptual day. So what that really means, there's some of you who maybe are sometimes a little bit shy about the math or this, or feel like you're not qualified to say things about the math or whatever. You're all, which is wrong. You are qualified to say things about the math, but I understand that sometimes people feel that way. Certainly I do. But with this, I hope you feel very qualified to jump in at any time once I start yammering, and either question what I'm saying, or debate what I'm saying, or clarify what I'm saying, or add your own experience, etc. But so please do. So here we go. Like we have this scenario. It's late on an exhausting school night. You wake up to find yourself sitting in the car of a sleek and modern express subway train. Inside the train, everything looks symmetric. You're somewhere between 59th Street and 14th Street. It's a very technologically up-to-date train. I mean, that's code for like, maybe it's actually Tokyo, maybe it's actually Washington, D.C., or maybe it's more like maybe the A train than like the C train, or, whatever. And maybe it's one of those days when nothing weird is happening inside the train. And maybe you know what I'm saying? It's kind of the most optimum version of being on a train. And it says you wake up. It's not clear to me whether you've literally just awakened out of a dream or you fell asleep and now you feel like you're waking up and maybe you're actually in a dream. I mean, it's all supposed to be very optimal to the point of being somewhat dreamlike, right? And the whole idea, as you know, as you already thought about days ago, is that there's nothing empirical, there's nothing sensory, there's nothing obvious or apparent or material to indicate to your bodily senses whether you're actually in motion or not, right? That's the scenario. You're not lurching, you're not turning, you're not bumping. And even inside the train, it's not even clear what's the front and what's the back. And we've all been on, say, the A train, where or most trains, the seats are arranged so that the train actually can go in one direction or the other, right? There's so you so I don't think this is like totally far-fetched. And the ultimate question that runs through the whole scenario is, okay, given this very symmetric, very unidentified situation, the whole question is, are you moving or not? And obviously different people had different opinions, and then the question gets refined as we go through the packet. But the first thing I just want to well, I guess I am going to. All right. So the first thing I want to ask you, especially if you have your homework in front of you, is I just want to take like a quick informal poll, but I want everybody to vote. Every time I ask for a vote, I want you to vote one way or the other, even if you're lying. I mean, even if you don't remember what you put or whatever, I do want you to commit to a vote one way or the other. So the first thing I want to know from a sign of electronic hands or whatever is who at the beginning of this whole packet, right when it asked first, oh, sorry. And then it had you, of course, it had you do sketches, which we'll talk about the sketches at some point, but it had you do sketches at the beginning of the packet. Okay. And you had to do sketches. But then the very first question is, at this moment, given everything we just described and everything you just drew, like, are you moving or not? I want a show of hands for anybody that put or is now putting yes. Just raise your electronic hand if you say, yes, I'm moving. Or your physical hand. Okay, sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, oh, that's a lot. Okay, Katie, Nancy, Jada, Alan, thank you. That's okay, that's like 4 people. Okay, and there's no right or wrong here. I mean, really, cool. Now raise your hand if you said no. But the one wrong thing is if you totally abstain from every choice. I'll give you all the 5 choices. But okay, so we got Shai, we've got Alexis, we've got Mohammed, we've got Alan, all saying no, not moving. Cool. And no, that's like an even split so far, which I think is totally not surprised, which I think is reasonable. Cool. Thank you guys. All right. Who said, oh, and now, oh, all right. So now I don't know if Revo just joined. Was that a no, Revo? Just out of curiosity. Did you raise your hand for no? Is that what that was? Yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, all right. So now who votes for at this stage? Now, again, like other things happen later in the packet, and you've all read the whole packet at this point, but at this stage in the packet, who votes for both yes and no? Okay, that's 1. That's Steph. Oh, that's 2. That's Stephanie and Maria. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's 3. That's Logan. Okay. What again? This is for the both yes and no. Oh, and sorry, there's something in the chat. Oh, that was. Oh, thank you, Revolt. I didn't see that. Thank you for responding. My bad. I didn't see that you were in the chat. I totally appreciate it. Okay. And sir, wow. Okay. I'll take it. Could you talk to my son, please, and have him call me? All right. Anyway, so that's both yes and no. All right, that's interesting. So we have, and you notice it's still kind of an even split because sort of have 4 votes for yes, 4 votes for no, 4 votes for both yes and no, and then we have this next option, neither yes nor no. Does anybody vote for that? And by the way, I'm very aware that the last 3 options are similar. They may be, I'm sure different among us distinguish them differently. Like that, like it's not clear what the difference is between those 3 options, but I think there is a difference. It just might be, the difference might be different in each one of our minds, and that's okay. But I'm just trying to get a sense of your gut instinct, basically. So did anybody vote for neither yes nor no? It's looking like no. It's looking like I'm looking to chat. Okay. And then finally, the last option, which I think is different, but maybe until you see it, maybe you think the other ones mean this. I don't know. So the last option is not enough information to choose any of the above. Anybody put that? Okay, that's Josephine. That's what. That's Emily. Jenna, thank you. Okay, is that it? Okay. And I don't know if to. Okay, and look, now look. So far, this is a pretty even. Now wait a minute. I'm going to look also. I don't want to embarrass anybody on purpose, but did some people not vote at all? I'm going to say right now. Ooh, someone's coming. I'm going to say right now. Raise your hand if you didn't vote for any of those 5 options. And I know some of you did not. Oh, okay, that's honest. Fair enough. Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else? Let's step up here because I'm going to do the control on this experiment in a second. This is where you don't, the one thing that would be wrong is like totally spacing out on this whole thing. Did it? Thank you, Eric. Okay, fair enough. That's fair. All right, so we got Eric and Victoria totally. Anybody else not vote at all when I just gave the options? And I think there's a couple of you. I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but okay, we're going to do the control on the experiment right now. We want to, this is a conceptual thing. We all want to be part of this. And by the way, oh, okay. Thank you, Shawnee. Okay. I'm going to say this too. It's conceptual. Oh, yes, it's conceptual. Like there's not numbers yet. It's conceptual. And yes, it's exploratory. Like right now, we're sort of having a discussion and it was open-ended and you got like all the points no matter what you put. But there is a point to all this. Let me be very clear. This whole thing is leading ultimately to a very specific conclusion, which once we establish it, then there are right and wrong things to be said about it. Like this is not a matter of our feelings. Ultimately, it is a matter of starting with our intuitions, but it's not a matter of landing on our feelings. I don't know if that, and I'll try to elaborate on that later. So what I'm saying is right now, you can say anything you want, but you got to say something. Everybody can vote on this. So in order to make that explicit, I'm going to say right now, raise your electronic hand if you are hearing me speak at all right now. In other words, everybody raise your electronic hand. This is the control on the experiment. Thank you. So and keep it up, or do an emoji or whatever, but keep them up, please. Like, so I see 14 people. Okay, wait. I literally keep them up. I'm being a jerk here on purpose for a second. Okay, like there's 3. All right, cool. Thank you. Keep them up. I want to see everybody's hands up. I want to see that everybody's with me here. I know Josephine's with me. Okay, so it's not electronic, but you're with me, right, Joseph? Yeah, I know you are because you've been like talking the whole time. But Joseph, okay. So everybody, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, all right. So now we're going to do this one more time. I want everybody to vote for one of the 5 options. I'm not going to do this with every question. Don't worry. I just want to get the overall thing on. I'm going to do it on one other question, and then we're going to discuss. But I want everybody to vote on one of the 5 options. And by those 5 options, I mean the ones right here on the screen. So raise your electronically. Yeah, put your hands down now. Sorry, put your hands down. I know, like it. Great. Thank you. Okay, great. From here on in, everybody's going to drink as much coffee as I do before these classes. Okay, so everybody can put their hands down, including you could all. Wait, is everybody? Wait, I know the hand things. I want to see all the hands. Okay, thank you. Awesome. Okay, here we go. I'm going to see everybody's going to raise their hand one time on one of these 5 options, and there's a reason I'm doing this. There's always a reason, but you can't see. Hold on, and neither can I. Hold on. Okay, the 5 options are right here. And this is at the beginning of the packet. In other words, again, for anybody who's just tuning in now, you're on a train. There's no indications of asymmetry or lurching, et cetera, of any kind. Okay. You're somewhere between 59th Street and 14th Street. You just woke up from a nap or I don't know what, or some artificially induced state of reverie. Option 1. Yes, or option A. Yes, you are moving. Raise your hand if you vote for yes, you are moving. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, going once, going twice. 5 people so far for yes, you are moving. 5 people. Okay, put your hands down, please. Awesome, thank you. This is great. Okay, it almost feels like a class. Okay, so now option number 2. Vote for you are not moving. The answer is no, you are not moving. 1, 4, 5. Okay, going once, going twice. So we've got 5 and 5, right? 10. Okay, so 5 people voted for yes, 5 people voted for no. And by the way, I think everybody in this room is an intelligent, reasonable person. And we now know that everybody's paying attention. So apparently reasonable minds can differ on this, right? We have an even split so far, 5 and 5. That says something about this. Awesome. You can put your hands down now. Thank you. So that's 10 so far. So now raise your hand if you say both yes and no. That's 1. That's 4, 5. Awesome. And presumably everybody's just 6, and everybody's just voting for one option, right? Okay, yes, right. Okay, everybody's voting for one option. So now 6 people for both yes and no. Awesome, thank you. You can put them down. 7. Okay, you can put them down. Thank you. Okay. So we have 17 so far. Okay, now raise your hand for neither yes nor no, like the 4th option, option D. Neither yes nor, okay, going once, neither yes nor no. Going twice, going. Okay, so nobody for D. Okay, I could understand that. E, not enough information to choose any of the above. We have 3. We have, I feel like maybe some people are voting more than once, but okay. 4, sweet 5. Okay, 4 people for not enough information. Going one. Okay, and you're putting your hands down. Okay, or are you changing your mind? Keep them up if it's not enough information. Keep them up if it's not. Okay. If it's not enough information, okay, cool. So it's 4. Okay, now you can put them down. So I think we have 5, 5, 7, and 4, I believe. That's 21. Is that, I'm going to stop the screen for 1 second so I can just see. Oh, no, 24. Well, that's more. So a couple people voted a couple of times, but okay. As long as, but that, I'm going to take it that everybody did vote at least. And wait, does someone have their hand up? Okay. Why are we doing this? There's a couple of reasons we're doing this. Well, first of all, it's okay. This is a complicated question, right? Or it's a simple question, but it's a hard question. First of all, notice that before we do any equations or before we do any math proofs of this, I'm going to stop the share for right now. Yeah, I'm going to stop the share for right now. Notice that before we do any equations or start grinding any numbers, we check in with our own intuition first. That, right? Our basic instinct, our basic, like, just mental state of what do we feel, what do we think in our gut about the physics situation. Number one, I want to say that no matter how complicated or sophisticated physics problems look or how mathematical they get, they should always start and end with a gut check, for real. I think that's even true in math, honestly, at this point in my life. But I'll say, whether you think that's true in math or not, physics is not math. Math is the language of physics. Physics is about the physical world of space and time. So before it gets into grinding the language, it should be about what our gut tells us we're experiencing in space and time. That doesn't mean our gut is always right. I'm not saying that. In fact, the point of physics is to develop our gut and make it better and better as we go on, so that our gut is more frequently right than it used to be. It's not that our gut is always right, but it is about our gut ultimately. It is about things intuitively making sense, or us intuitively making sense about the world of space and time, excuse me. So that's partly why we just started with a vote and all of that like this. Now, the second thing is, the question here is the train moving or not? It's clearly a confusing question, or it's apparently a confusing question, because we had so many. I mean, we really had a very even split down the line, right? We had 5 people vote for yes, 5 people vote for no. We had 7 people vote for both yes and no, and then another 7 or so vote for not enough information. I think there was some overlap, but a lot of people voted for a lot of different things on this. So it's not obvious what the answer is. I mean, there is ultimately, I think, a kind of answer that we're going to get at, but it's not immediately obvious what it is. Now, I'm going to ask you one more question before I go, well, a couple more questions before we go on and I tell you what I think the conclusion is. Here's my next question. Even though this is meant to be a thought experiment, even though this is meant to be optimized or idealized or like stripped of as many day-to-day imperfections as a subway in your mind could be stripped of, even though it's artificial, I'm just going to ask this. Raise your electronic hand if ever in your life, even for a moment, you found yourself in a situation like this one, i.e., have you ever in your life been even momentarily confused as to whether you were moving past something or whether the something was moving past you? And before I ask you to raise your hands, what I mean by that is, have you ever, for example, and some people are already raising their hands. Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to keep them up. Oh, well, a lot. Maybe I don't even have to develop this. Okay, and for those of you who are not raising your hand, thank you. Okay, and I'm going to repeat the question. Well, cool. Actually, a lot of people are raising their hand. All right, and I'm going to say for those of you who are not raising your hand, we're going to find out in a second whether it's like deliberately or not. I'm including in my mind situations like, and actually, no, I'll get one of you who's raising your hand, and maybe one of you who doesn't talk so much or doesn't always feel comfortable talking. Could one of you who's raising your hand right now, like briefly name or describe a kind of example of this, like besides a subway train, like a situation you've ever been in? Anybody who's raising their hand right now, does somebody want to just briefly identify a situation where they were even for a moment confused as to whether? Yeah, go. I'm sorry. Awesome.
Right. Yeah, so sometimes when I'm stopped at the red light, and suddenly I would be like, oh, if I'm moving or the next car like beside me that's moving, so I have to like, oh, think about it. Oh, okay, it's not me that's moving, it's the next car that's moving.
Perfect. Thank you, Mohammed. That is Mohammed, right? Was that Mohammed just talking? Yes.
Yes, Professor.
Right. Okay, that's perfect. First of all, thank you for talking. Please submit for points. That is totally, I think, a very real example that in a car, whether you could be the driver or you could be a passenger, you stop at a stop sign and then someone next to you in another lane or something starts rolling back or rolling somewhere, and then you're like, oh my God, I think I'm rolling through the stop sign, and then you realize, oh no, it's not me, it's them, or the vice versa. I've definitely been in that situation. Or I might add, on a highway, if you're in traffic, right? And you're sitting there in traffic, and then there's a big tractor trailer next to you, and it starts, or you see it start to move forward or back or something. And for a moment, you don't know, did your foot just slip off the brake or vice versa? I mean, and so I think that does happen to people. Does anybody else want to add another example or add anything to that, or argue or disagree? Anybody who has, like Shawnee or Josephine or Jada, if you want to add anything, please do.
I would say like in situations where when you think you forgave someone, but then something happens and you remember what they did to you, so you realize that you didn't actually forgive them, you just forgot about it.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, and could you relate that to like physical motion?
Yes. So for example, all right, so when you haven't seen a person in a long time, you don't think about the situation at all because it's not on the forefront of your mind. You think that you forgave that person. But then when you see them, you're triggered. So your response is usually in a negative way. You kind of want them to feel how you feel. So you kind of maybe like may act in rage.
Interesting. Okay. That's definitely that. Okay. So that's a very personal kind of, okay. I think I understand. And that does ultimately relate to something that we're definitely talking about here, which is perspective. That may be a slightly more, that might have a more emotional content than the kind of that might be more about emotion.
I mean, if you want me to think about it in an emotional setting, you can think about, like, for example, somebody just put in the chat, like when you're driving past trees and stuff like that. You know how sometimes you space out when you're driving past trees and you have a memory of something. It's kind of like that, where you remember a situation in which you were maybe in a car with someone else, and it could be like that. You're still in motion in the car during the thought process. You get what I'm saying?
I think so. And yeah, and thank you. That's cool. And I like how you're broadening the whole idea to interpersonal perspectives. And thank you also for directing my attention. I had missed the chat for a minute, but yes, thank you also for directing my attention to what Ravo put in the chat. I mean, the thing that, now I'm seeing more in the chat. Hold on a second. Yes. Okay. Right. So I think what many of us are getting at, what Mohammed was getting at, what Shawnee's getting at, what Ravo and now Katie are getting at, is you can be in vehicles like regular cars and you could pass a tree, but it totally looks for the moment that the tree is passing you. And actually, if you're not driving, or you just like start paying attention suddenly, or this is kind of like what Shawnee was saying, if you haven't been paying attention to the trees for a while and suddenly your attention is directed to the trees, at least for a moment, it can absolutely feel in every way or seem in every way that the trees are going back rather than you going forward. And definitely in amusement park rides, amusement park rides are designed to, that's a great example, to Katie's example. Amusement park rides are designed to confuse you as intensely as they can on this point. Absolutely. Okay, and Shawnee, you could put, okay, awesome. So here's, where am I going with this? Okay, first thing I'm trying to say right now, first thing I'm trying to maybe convince everybody is the thought experiment that you had to work out in homework 3 was artificial in the sense that it wasn't happening to you right then when you were reading the sheet, like you were just reading a sheet. But it is an attempt to relate to things that I feel actually really happen to people in real life. By the way, another definite example is elevators and airplanes, right? In a deep, deep way, elevators are designed so that you don't feel the motion, right? If you felt the motion when you were in an elevator the entire time, you'd be nauseated every time you got out. No one would ever take an elevator. Like, the whole thing of the elevator is after it's taken off. After, it starts accelerating, once it's in its midway journey between floor 3 and floor 5 or 8 or something like that, you could do whatever you want in an elevator. And it's as normal, right? You could play a game of catch with somebody or whatever you want. You could dribble a basketball inside the elevator, as long as you're not in the beginning stage or the ending stage when it's accelerating or accelerating negatively. It's as though you're just in a box, and the first floor and the second floor and the third floor are moving past you, right? You are absolutely confused about whether you're moving or not, because if your body weren't confused, your body would not like it at all, right? And definitely same thing with an airplane. But I think Josephine has her hand up. I'm sorry, Josephine. You.
What about like the ocean? Like, sometimes when I go out on a boat, like, and I anchor the boat, and then the waves are all moving in a particular direction around me, but the boat itself is not moving.
Definitely boats. That's a great example. And you know what's great about the boat example? Absolutely boats. And boats are a great example because boats really take the example in both ways. Like, on the one hand, no one would ever get on a cruise boats. I personally, I've never been on one, but I used to watch a TV show called The Love Boat. I don't know. And as far as my impression of cruise ships, they're like whole civilizations on these freaking boats, right? They're like floating hotels with swimming pools and like tennis courts, or I don't know if that's, or shuffleboard courts, people and restaurants, right? Waiters are walking around with glasses of champagne on trays on these cruise boats. And the waiters are not necessarily trained Olympic athletes. They're not running around like this, compensating for the motion of the boat on there. They're just walking around with perfectly balanced glasses of champagne on their trays, and people are going into swimming pools, and they're just swimming like normal, right? So when the boat is actually moving out there, everybody acts as though it isn't. And what I like is the flip of what Josephine just said. The reverse is true. The whole boat could be anchored, but if the waves are rough enough, then you could actually feel as though you are moving when you're not, right? Okay, great example. And by the way, definitely just to bring the point home, well, we're going to talk about this a lot. Certainly airplanes. Airplanes are the classic example, right? My God. Well, I don't want to go into the whole thing right now, but I think you know what I'm thinking of. In an airplane, once the captain says it's, where we've achieved a cruising speed and a cruising altitude, and it's safe for you to move freely about the cabin or whatever, and they start serving drinks, or you start watching a movie in your seat and complaining that it's a bad movie, as though you were just sitting at home watching a movie. You're not sitting there, you're just totally spaced out, and someone says, pass the peanuts, and you just pass them. You don't go like, okay, here you go. Here comes the peanuts at 5,000, feet above sea level and at 500 miles per hour. Like you're just like, here's the peanuts, right? And when you walk to the back of the cabin, you just walk normally. What's up with, and if you didn't, you would never take an airplane, right? So there definitely are real scenarios where whether you're moving past clouds or whether you're moving past water waves or whether you're moving past trees or trees are moving past you is at least momentarily difficult to discern, to put it mildly. Now, the question is, how do we resolve this? What does our brain or our body or the laws of physics do to get us to actually come to an answer? Well, that's where I have to go in this discussion. But I got to say one last thing. In fact, I'm going to shift screens now. Wait, am I? Yeah, I'm going to shift screens now back to, hold on.
Professor?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
you were muted. Oh, I thought you were
Oh, sorry.
muted.
I'm just writing. Oh, no. Yes,
Okay.
I'm just quiet because I'm just writing this down. Sorry. Yeah, good point. Oh, sorry. I just want to write this and then I'll. But thank you for paying attention. That's awesome. Okay. Okay. The first thing I want to just to summarize like where we are so far with this sheet. First thing I want to say is this train of thought, this fictional scenario, or what is called in physics a thought experiment, that's a real thing. In fact, technically, if you care, or if you want the technical term in physics, this is known as a Gedanken experiment. I'll write that somewhere. I'll write that. So, Gedanken is German for thought. And some of the biggest breakthroughs in physics have been first established or considered in what are known as Gedanken experiments. Einstein was famous for these. They're legitimate in physics. But anyway, this was a thought experiment. Like, what if you're in a train that blah, 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 blah. But my first claim that I'm making or trying to advance in this class is this thought experiment, like all good physics thought experiments, is not actually a fiction. It's just a composite. It's a representation of something that actually does occur all the time in our real daily lives, inhabiting time and space. Okay, so it's real. And I think it sounds like a number of people in the class agree or have had that experience. But so that's my first. So what my handwriting says is it represents scenarios which actually do occur in our daily lives. It can be legitimately difficult to distinguish whether I move past you or you move past me, right? Like that's like the issue of this whole scenario. Is it's clear. Well, yeah, that's the issue of the whole scenario. But now I want to go a step further and say this, and tell me if you want me to go back, in the PDF. But now I want to say that train of thought also represents a question of motion which was authentically confusing and profoundly productive in history. Okay, the thing that some of you might have already made this connection. I want to say now that train of thought, yes, it represents things that can actually happen in your daily life, in elevators, in trains, in airplanes, in cars, etc. But also, the train is also an analogy, or it's an or a metaphor, an extended metaphor. The train also represents a certain vessel or a certain container or object or something which in history posed on a very large level a question of whether it was moving past other things or other things were moving past it. I'm saying that being confused as to whether we're on a moving vessel or sitting still on a stationary vessel was actually a very big question in history and actually in the earliest stages of the development of classical physics. And I think now that I've mentioned it that way, I think you all know what I'm talking about. Does anybody know? So I'm saying this train of thought is actually an analogy to some bigger vessel. Does anybody know what I'm getting at or what I'm talking about? Like, where in history were people legitimately, like literally, truly confused and engaged in debate over whether something was sitting still or whether something was sitting still while other things moved past it, or whether it was moving past other sitting still things? Does anybody know what I'm talking about or getting at in history? You do actually know what I'm talking about. All right, let me rephrase the question. Well, wait, first of all, raise your hand if you can hear me speaking right now. Okay, that's Claudia. Thank you. That Maria smile. Okay, thank you. Okay, lots of you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Shawnee. Thank you. Okay, awesome. So let me repeat the question. You totally, I'm not phrasing it well because you do know what I'm talking. I know you know what I'm talking about. You just don't know that you know. Throughout history, for hundreds and hundreds of years, there was actually a raging back and forth. There were huge events and chapters in the history of politics, the history of religion, the history, and definitely the history of what we would now call classical physics. As to whether a certain large object was actually sitting still while other things moved past it, or whether it was moving past other things that sat still. And maybe Victoria or Josephine, maybe are you, or one of you gonna, or are you just keeping your hand up from before, or would you like to suggest? Victoria, do you have a thought, or are you just keeping your hand up from before? Oh no, you guys do know what I'm talking about. Well, I'll give you a hint. I'll give you another hint. If you notice in the train of thought packet, at first, we're just looking around and we can't tell whether we're moving or not. We have like no evidence at all. But then later in the packet, we see some white lights, like a bunch of white points of light that appear to be moving past us. So that seems to give us more evidence for the question. It seems to give us more information of the kind that maybe we're looking for to resolve this question. So we see white lights. And in fact, I'm very curious, but I'm not going to go down the road right now. For many of you, once the white lights came into the scenario, you actually changed your vote because the white lights did constitute some kind of information. We saw a bunch of white lights moving past us, so that seemed to indicate something. So some of you at that point said, oh, I guess if we see white lights moving, I guess it's clear, like we're a subway, we're going past the white lights, we're going through a station. Others of you said, well, no, those white lights could be another. Beautiful. Okay. Maybe, and sorry, I see it all in the chat now. Maybe it's been in the chat this entire time. I'm sorry. Okay, I see in the private chat and I see in the public chat. Thank you. Exactly what I'm getting at. Yes. Awesome, guys. Yes. So, right. The train is an analogy to what we now call planet Earth. The train is an analogy to Earth. The white lights are an analogy to stars. So I don't remember if in this version of the packet or in other versions, like we could then introduce like little specific colored lights that do something different from the white lights, and those we would consider like planet Venus, planet Mars, planet Jupiter, etc. Everybody who's in the chat, like a direct chat person whose name I won't mention, and Victoria and Shawnee and Mohammed and Shai, yes, I'm saying, let's get it straight. You've all known this in one way or another since fourth grade or whatever. Like people have been legitimately authentic. I mean, thinking people, I mean, scholars, I mean, people who wrote stuff down and paid a lot of attention. People have looked down on the ground and seen no motion of the ground, like seen our feet be stable on the ground, and seen that we can like jump up off the ground. And then when we land on the same place on the ground, right? We don't like land somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. And we've seen that birds don't have an easier time flying east than they do west, or vice versa, et cetera, et cetera. So we look down on the ground and we see no evidence of motion whatsoever. We see a stable ground that we call terra firma, the stable earth. And then we look up in the sky and we see things moving past us. We see a sun going from east to west every day in the sky. We see, if we pay attention at night, we see a whole bunch of constellations and stars also move from east to west every night. You might not know that. You might not have ever looked up in it, but they do that just like the sun. We see a moon which rises in the east and sets in the west every night when we can see it, etc. So for thousands of years, scholarly, thinking, caring people came to the very, very legitimate conclusion or view that we're sitting still on a rock called Earth, and the whole sky is moving past us. And then people started engaging in a debate. It started becoming more and more difficult to maintain that view. And by the time we got to a famous person named Galileo, whom you've heard of, Galileo adopted a view that had already been advanced before him, advanced by Copernicus, advanced by someone named Aristarchus, thousands of years before him. Galileo took very, very, very seriously the idea that, in fact, no, the Earth is moving past the sun and the planets and the moon and the stars, even though it feels totally stable on the ground. And in fact, in order to advance this view, and Galileo got into a lot of trouble for that, as you know, in order to advance the view that we might possibly be standing on a ground that's actually slipping through space at enormous speeds, Galileo, well, he wrote a number of books, and in one of them, he made a whole big analogy to a ship, just like, I think it was Josephine's, correct me if I'm wrong, but he talked at length about the experience you would have in a boat if you went down into the cabin of a boat while the boat was anchored, and then what would happen if you went down into the cabin of the boat when the boat was not anchored. And he talked at length about how similar those two experiences would be and how difficult it would be for you to distinguish whether you were moving or not, and ultimately advance the argument that, in fact, even on Earth, whether we are moving or not, it would be very difficult to tell. In fact, the ultimate point that Galileo came to that actually began all of what we consider to be classical physics, the ultimate point that Galileo came to, that we're going to start writing down right now for the next 21 minutes, the ultimate point that Galileo came to is it wouldn't just be difficult to distinguish whether we're moving or not. When you see something moving past you, the question of whether it's moving past you or you're moving past it is not just difficult to distinguish. It's not just tricky if you're confused or on drugs or asleep or not paying attention in traffic. It's not just tricky. It's impossible to distinguish. The thing that Galileo said that utterly changed history and began what we now consider to be classical physics, the thing that Galileo said is what we're going to start writing down. Well, he said a number of things. But Galileo, in attempting to convince the world that at least it was possible that the Earth could be moving past the sun, and yet we would feel no evidence of that whatsoever, right? Which is what we now believe to this day. And let me remind you, like, you believe that, right? Or at least you were taught that in third grade. Like, when you make solar system projects out of like cantaloupes and grapes or whatever in third grade, and you put the sun over here, and then you have like a grape going around that's supposedly Earth, right? You're adopting this view that we're standing on something called a planet, which is planet is the Greek word for wanderer. We're in third grade, from third grade on, we're adopting the view that this rock that we're standing on is actually perpetually and continually moving past the sun, even though we don't have any direct daily evidence of that whatsoever, even though we don't feel it at all whatsoever. And let me tell you, before I even go on another beat, like, that's really weird that we've been learning that since third grade. When we adopt this view that Earth is moving in something called a solar system, that Earth is moving past the sun, make no mistake. If you've ever asked yourself, whether it was in third grade or right now, well, wait, if we're moving past the sun, like, why don't we feel it? If you've ever asked yourself that, I'll tell you what the common answer that people tend to assume. Sorry, I'm just fixing this. The common answer that people tend to assume as to why we're not feeling that, well, one unconscious answer people assume is, well, I guess we're just moving so slowly that it's barely perceptible. Au contraire, mon frère, if you believe these solar system projects that you were making in third grade, if you accept the view that Galileo was right, then you're accepting the view that the Earth is moving past the sun at speeds approximating 65,000 miles per hour all the time. Let's just get that straight right now. Like, if the Earth is indeed moving past the sun, well, first of all, if it's rotating on its own axis, it's doing that at approximately 1,000 miles per hour. And if it's actually moving past the sun, in a revolution around the sun that takes a year to complete, that's not like, that's at 65,000 miles per hour. So it's not because it's too slow that you don't feel it. And if you think something like, well, I guess it's because of gravity, like gravity, holds us all stuck to the Earth. Gravity does hold us all stuck to the Earth, but that doesn't change. Gravity is down. Gravity doesn't have anything to do with anything that's going on horizontally, or if you know what I mean. Gravity is what's pulling us toward the center of the Earth, and gravity is pulling the Earth toward the sun. But that doesn't in any way affect or have anything to do with the fact that we're flying past the sun at 65,000 miles an hour, which is faster than rocket ships even need to go in order to escape Earth's orbit and go to the moon. Like, escape velocity for a rocket ship is like 45,000 miles an hour. I mean, I'm rounding the numbers, but these are accurate numbers. Airplanes that you've ever been on unless you've been on the Concorde jet, you get on airplanes that go like maybe 700 miles an hour. If you believe that the Earth is moving, you're believing that the Earth is moving past the sun all the time at speeds that are faster than any rocket ship that's ever gone to the moon. That's number one. Number two, I want to add to that if you believe this whole view that we were taught in third grade and just sort of accepted, then we're moving past the sun, which itself is moving past the center of the galaxy at like 650,000 miles per hour. Okay, if you accept this view, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying think about it for a minute. This view that comes from Galileo, then one has to deal with the question of, well, how come we don't feel it? And Galileo's answer to that is actually much more important in a way. Well, to me, it's Galileo's answer as to why don't we feel it? If we're really moving past the sun, how is it we have no evidence? How is it that when you jump up from the Earth, you land in the same spot and the Earth's floor doesn't slip out from under your feet? Galileo's answer is ultimately that, well, that's what happens in an airplane, right? When you jump up in an airplane, if you ever do, the back of the airplane doesn't slam you in the butt, if you know what I'm saying, right? Or if you try to dribble a basketball in an elevator, it's normal. What am I getting at? I'm getting at this. Galileo, in order to show people not that the Earth was definitely moving past the sun, but even that it was possible that the Earth was moving past the sun, and that even if it were, we would not, in fact, have any evidence for that. Let me say it a different way. Galileo had to argue against everybody who was saying there's no evidence of this. Like, we feel stable, we feel firm, we feel stationary. Galileo had to respond to that argument. And he had to show or advance a claim according to which, even if we didn't feel anything, it could still be possible for the Earth to move. And so what he did was he advanced this thing called the principle of relativity. And it's all throughout all of his books, and it's written in many, many different forms. I mean, his books are not written in English in the first place. They're written some in Italian and some in Latin. But I want to make clear to you, like the lesson of today, and I know we have 15 minutes more, I want to make clear to you what the principle of relativity is, because it is the law of laws. The principle of relativity is the principle from which all the laws and the definitions and equations of physics derive. Like, it actually comes before anything that we've said about acceleration or velocity and all of that. And this principle, there's different ways to say it. There's different forms, and I want to let you know what they are right now. So this is all about roughly 1626 AD or CE, whatever you want to say. When Galileo's in the whole argument of whether the Earth's moving or not, in his books, he advances this principle to adjudicate the argument. And the first form of the principle is this. Okay. I'm looking at the time. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to write. I'm going to write it again on the next page just so it's totally clear. I'm going to write the same thing also so that I can define terms. So I'm going to go to the next page. If you didn't catch it on this page, don't worry about it. I'm about to write it again. The same thing. Okay. So this is everything I'm saying for the next 13 minutes. And all of what I'm saying underlies all the physics we're going to do for the next 2 semesters. This is all called Galileo's principle of relativity, GPR, okay? I'm going to give you different forms of it. I'm going to give you 3 forms right now. You're going to get more forms as we progress through the class. They're all different forms of the same principle. It is a principle. It is even deeper. It comes before the laws. Just like the United States Constitution it is the law of laws in the United States, right? Like New York State can make a law that affects you, or New York City can make a law that affects you, but it can't make a law that goes against the United States Constitution. You know what I mean? The law, right? Same thing here. Principles. These are the principles that begin physics, and the laws of physics come from here. So and I'm going to give you 3 different forms of this principle. They're all the same principle, but they're just said in different ways for important reasons. So GPR form number 1 is what I just wrote. The laws of physics, whatever they're going to be. Like, we don't even know yet. This is Galileo, in a way, inventing classical physics. He says, first and foremost, the laws of physics, whatever they are, whatever they might be in hundreds of years from now. I don't know all of them, says Galileo, but whatever the laws of physics are, the laws of physics must be the same and hold fixed, hold constant in all inertial reference frames. Now I'm going to I know we have 11 minutes left. First of all, I'm just going to define these. So that's law one. Of course, I have to explain what this means and all that. But in order to do that, let me first define the terms in it. By inertial, I mean unaccelerated. I mean constant velocity, okay? And by reference frame, I mean a perspective or coordinate system maintained by observer regarded as stationary. That's a little bit complicated. We're gonna have to talk about that more and more, but in quick, what I mean by a reference frame, I do mean a perspective, how you see the world, okay? Specifically though, we're scientists, so a perspective in science means a coordinate system, a grid, an X and Y axis, you know, or an X and Y and Z axis through which you observe all of three-dimensional space, okay? But the catch is what makes a reference frame is it's a coordinate system that is maintained, that is held, that is assumed by an observer, by someone, you, me, the physicist, the person in the lab, whatever, by someone who is regarded, who is treated as stationary. So it's kind of like in video games, right? Like you view it's like a first person thing. You view yourself as at rest and regard everything as coming past you. And as long as you have a grid for doing that, that's called your reference frame. I will elaborate more on that like all the time, but that's in short. So what we're saying right now, and I know now I'm like talking a little bit fast, but what I'm saying right here in English, what Galileo is saying is, look, I don't know what the laws of physics are yet. Like they're going to be, I mean, I know some of them maybe. I know, for example, if I'm Galileo, I sort of know that there's some kind of law of gravity where like what's thrown up must come down and things like seem to fall toward the center of the earth in a straight line. And maybe I even know the rate at which they do that. Maybe I don't. But I know things fall down to earth in a straight line. So that's maybe an example of a law of physics, right? What Galileo is saying is, whatever that law is and any other laws that are going to be discovered or developed later on, they can't change from velocity to velocity. The laws of physics are about things like velocity and acceleration and motion and things like that. They can't change from one velocity to another any more than a law of the land could change from one citizen to another, right? Like laws dictate circumstances. Circumstances don't dictate laws. So the first thing Galileo says, which should strike you as almost like everything in physics, once you sort of get what I'm saying with this first form, you should almost think like that it's so obvious you don't even know why I bother saying it. I'm just saying, Galileo is saying, whatever the laws of physics are, say like gravity. Gravity doesn't change if you're going 1 mile an hour or 2 miles an hour or 3 miles an hour. It's still gravity, right? It tells you how fast you're going to go. Your fastness doesn't tell gravity how to act. So the form number one is whatever the laws are the laws. That even if we don't know them, if they're laws, they're laws. And, okay, so that's the first form. But then, so what? Like, so what? Form number two. So this is a second formulation of the same idea. Like, in other words, if you accept that first idea, which you only have 6 minutes left, we'll discuss it more next time, but it's phrased, the first idea is phrased in such a way as to almost make it impossible to disagree with. It's just saying laws are laws, in effect, right? But then the next form says, well, if that's true, if you really accept that the laws of physics won't change from one perspective to another, They can't change whether you're going past the world at 60 miles an hour or you're going past the world at 30 miles an hour or you're sitting still in the world. No matter what you're doing, the laws have to be the laws and you have to observe the laws as such. Well, then form number 2 says, no experiment can be designed nor performed to measure the absolute, I'm putting it in quotes, the absolute velocity of a solitary object, a single object, through space. What I'm saying here, and I am going a little, we have 5 minutes left. I'm saying here, if you really, whatever physics is, and this, we're not assuming that you know all of physics or that I do, or that like we're just beginning to learn physics now. Galileo was just beginning to figure out physics when he realized this. His first recognition when he was trying to do physics, he was like, wait a second, whatever the laws of physics are, they got to be the same no matter what. And if that's true, that means I can't do an experiment to figure out whether I'm moving past the trees or the trees are moving past me. Or better yet, if I'm on the highway and I'm in a car, this is back to, I think, exactly. Oh, sorry, direct chat person. The direct chat person, there's only one direct. Someone asked, would it be based off where the observation is taken? Almost exactly. What this is all saying is whatever results you get at about velocity will be based on the velocity of the observer. So it's a really good question in the direct chat. I'm going to keep going for a second, but here's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying, take that situation where you're in the car and you fall asleep or whatever, and for a moment, you don't know whether the car next to you, the truck next to you is backing up while you're sitting still, or whether you're going forward next to the truck next to you. What we're here to say is that is not you being an idiot. That is not you being confused or deluded. That's a totally legitimate and, in fact, unresolvable confusion, because if the laws are the same, whether you're going at 0 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour, which we just said in Form 1, if the laws are the same, then no matter what experiment you do, it will result in the same results, no matter what speed you're going. In other words, you're on that boat that, like Josephine mentioned before, you're on that boat and you're trying to figure out, is the boat moving past that island or that other boat, or is that other boat moving past me? So you try to do a simple experiment. You take an object, you're like, I'm just going to drop this object and see where it lands. Because I know that if the boat were stationary, the object would land directly below my hands, right? Or you could do this on an airplane. You're like, is the airplane moving or not? I can't tell. It's all dark out. The windows are closed, blah, blah, blah. I just woke up. So you drop something on the floor and you're like, that's a simple experiment. I know that if the plane were parked, then whatever I drop would land directly on the floor, directly below my hand. But the problem is, if the laws of physics, such as gravity, are always the same, even if the plane is moving, the law is still going to lead to the same result. So and that's why you're willing to get on an airplane and watch movies and serve drinks and all that, because all experiments work out the same, whether you're at 0 miles per hour or 30 miles per hour or whatever. So you cannot, what Galileo's saying, I know we have 2 more minutes, but Galileo literally says at this point in history, you can't do, it's not just because of technology. I don't care what technology is developed in 400 years from now, says Galileo. You literally will never be able to make an experiment where you could find out whether you're moving past something else or it's moving past you. You can't do it because the laws are always the same. Therefore, the final thing I'm going to say with 3 minutes, GPR form number 3, since Galileo is basically the person in history who first starts developing physics as an experimental science, since Galileo breaks physics off from natural philosophy and says, from here on in, we only believe data that comes from reproducible, controlled experiments in the physical world. If you can't do an experiment to distinguish whether you're moving past me or I'm moving past you, then Galileo says, then there's no meaning to that at all. Galileo says, or put it another way, if you can't do an experiment to find out how fast something's actually going absolutely past space, if you can only figure out whether I'm moving, if you can only figure out that there's motion between me and you can't figure out which one's actually moving, then every velocity is necessarily a relation between, this is the last thing I'm going to say, and I am watching the clock, we have 1 more minute, but every velocity is a relation between two objects. No velocity is a property of one object. In other words, so this is the principle of relativity. From now on, we're saying literally, deeply, meaningfully, scientifically, there's no such thing as the velocity of the Earth. There's no such thing as the velocity of the A train. There's no such thing as the velocity of the sun. There's the velocity of the Earth relative to the sun, which turns out to be exactly the opposite of the velocity of the sun relative to the Earth. All velocities from here on in are comparisons between two objects. If you only have one object, there's no way to ascribe velocity to it. It doesn't mean anything. Velocity is a comparison between me and you. And if I could, from my perspective, I could say you're moving past me at 30 miles an hour to the east, or from your perspective, you could say I'm moving past you at 30 miles per hour to the west, and we are both as correct as each other. That is the relativity of velocities. That's the principle of relativity, and it's true from here on. It's true for the rest of physics. All velocities are relations, are comparisons between pairs of objects. No velocity ever in physics is the property of one single object. That's okay. So that's 1 minute over. That's all for today. We'll use that for the rest of our lives. And you can ask more questions next week. I'll see you in a week you get it. But I'll hang out if there's questions now. But thank you for, yes, thank you for being so attentive. Okay. But have a great day. Yes, thank you. Have a great day. Okay. But I'm here for questions, and I'll turn off the recording. Thank you. Have a great day. Yes, have a good one. Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.